Hello, everyone. This is Keith Stone with the Center for Hellenic Studies, and we're here again for our office hours, HeroesX office hours with Greg, Nagy, with Janet, Ellen, and Sarah. This week is hours 5 and 6. We have answers for both of them, responses to both of the questions this time. Let's see, why don't we start with 5? So the question is Song 44 of Sappho, as we see from reading the surviving fragments, focuses on the wedding of Hector and Andromache. So many pieces of this beautiful song are unfortunately missing, and it is difficult even for the experts to try and reconstruct the missing pieces. Still, I encourage you here to imagine and discuss what might be the look and feel of the whole song, as if by some good fortune, such a text were discovered in its entirety. And Greg, that's your question. I should say, even though I'm reading it.
Yes. Yes. It's not easy. It's certainly not easy. And I found that sometimes even with students who are specializing in classics, there are breakdowns in understanding or appreciation. So I welcome any insight from any angle.
Well, one of the participants has picked up on all the different senses which come into play in this poem, and presumably also in some of the other Sappho poems. There's the sight, there's the perfumes, the flowers, the songs, the singing, the ritual gestures, the wine, and all these things. Do you think that's something that would be in the parts that are missing? What do you think, Greg?
I find that so wonderfully evocative of local color, and even though Greek song culture loves to, I'm making song culture a person, even though in Greek song culture there's a tendency to make sure that local traditions can be understood by non-locals. I call that pan-Hellenism. Nevertheless, the local color is there. It's just the way French are so proud of every valley, because every valley has a different kind of cheese and a different kind of wine. And so you see a lot of local color here that's situated not only in the island of Lesbos with its 5 or 6 cities, main cities, depending on the historical time we're pinpointing, but also the mainland of Asia Minor facing the island of Lesbos. And all of this is an Aeolian community. I like to say Aeolian for the culture and Aeolic for the dialect, which is different in so many ways from Ionian culture, which tends to be the predominant culture as reflected in Homeric poetry most of the time, although there's a lot of Aeolian background music, so to speak, even in the Homeric Iliad. So that said, I see this as a beautiful exercise in local color. And Andromache's getting married to this dashing prince Hector. The Trojan War hasn't started yet. So we're not where we are in Iliad 6, where the Trojan War has already affected the life of Andromache in so many sad ways. Her brothers have been killed by Achilles. Her father has been killed by Achilles. Her mother has died of heartbreak. All of that is still not there. This is before the sons of the Achaeans arrive, and before all the suffering. And she is very much like the aristocratic women that we see in other parts of the Iliad. For example, I'm thinking of Chryseis and Briseis in Iliad 1, and then we return to Briseis again and again in later parts of the Iliad. And it's all part of this wonderful aristocratic culture of especially talented, smart, beautiful women who, when 5th century Greeks look back on it all, are so clearly more aristocratic than the conquerors, the conquerors of Troy, the Achaeans. So I just love it. I wish we had all of it. And then thanks to the new fragments of Sappho that have recently been discovered, we now know even more clearly that the song culture of the Aeolians, including the island of Lesbos, had been sort of subdivided into special kinds of performance for unmarried women and special kinds of performance for married women. Let's call them girls and women just to keep it shorthand, okay? And already there's a hint of that in Sappho 44, is there not? And then I like the fact that there's this wedding. I'm sorry, I can't stop talking, but that question was so good. The fact that there's this happy wedding with all the premonitions of bittersweet things to come. I say bittersweet because there's so much sadness, but there's so much beauty in the sadness that is yet to come. So well, and as you, my friends, all of you know, this is a composition that is not really hardcore lyric. It's certainly not hardcore epic. It's somewhere in between. It seems to be a soloist kind of format. And you can imagine a soloist singing to the accompaniment of a 7-string instrument. And
someone actually was asking about this kind of thing. Is this a song about a wedding or a song that would be sung at a wedding? Is this like a soloist singing while they're getting married, so to speak?
Well, I can see so many different occasions for this. It could be a wedding. It could be a climax of a festival. It could be, for all I know, a men-only party where a female take is foregrounded and the male take is backgrounded. That's typical of even male transmitted poetry, especially in the context of symposium. So I could see all of that. I was thinking in preparation for our meeting, how with the new fragments of Sappho, we also see that she herself as the number one performer that we imagine in most of the songs attributed to Sappho. I'm very careful in how I say this, that she has so many different roles, and we're familiar with the role, we're most familiar from earlier discoveries with the role of an aristocratic woman who has special bonds, aesthetic, let's call it choral, singing and dancing bonds, and emotional bonds with other women. And then we see her as somehow a major participant in weddings, maybe. But now with the new fragments, you can see her as a priestess. And if you're persuaded by the arguments of Renate Schlesier, and I'm coming around to it, there are even moments where she would be the equivalent of, Hélène would know better than I, these certain kinds of French characters who are on the verge of being a courtesan, but a very aristocratic courtesan. And how can you reconcile all these roles? Priestess, courtesan, somebody attending a wedding? Well, that has to do with the occasions. And I think a lot of songs attributed to Sappho need not be tied down by us to one single occasion, except for maybe the occasion of festivals. Festivals seem to be those wonderful situations where the widest variety of what would be occasions in other situations can be either actualized or imagined.
One of the participants said Song 44 is very Iliadic in nature, metrical placement of Cleus aftertone, and he drew attention to Achilles in Iliad being godlike. At the end, he says a poem is drawing attention to Achilles after all.
Yes, yes, and it's true that even in the local traditions of the Aeolians, Achilles was a primary figure. So it's not that he is shaded over in Aeolic traditions, and he is, I sometimes like to say it, a kind of idealized bridegroom, the bridegroom who never got married and who therefore is a very, well, I'll use this anachronistic word, romantic figure. And not only that, but as I noticed already in the 70s, when I was studying this particular song, the epithets that are applied to Hector and Andromache, equal to the gods, can just as easily be applied to Achilles. They're sort of cut from the same cloth. Is that the expression in English? Help. I don't want to use the metaphor of cookie cutter because that makes it too uniform, but there's definitely a variation on the theme of doomed bridegroom, doomed bride, and Hector and Andromache, even as a happy couple at a wedding, share in that in that whole constellation of, okay, I'll use the word lyric themes. I like to talk in more unguarded moments about the ethnographic work done by the Russian folklorist Vladimir Prop. And when he would interview participants in weddings, in traditional weddings, especially in rural Russia, one thing he came away with is how so many of these songs are very sad and have to do with unrequited love, with the death of one or both of the lovers, strenuous objections against a love affair by potential in-laws or even parents, all those things. And despite, I'll be fanciful, the 95% sadness of wedding songs, when people are interviewed about them, they're so happy about it. And even if they're thinking back about it 50 years later, even if you're the bride, you still remember just how happy you were when the romantic focus is on, let's say, the death of the bride, the tragic death of a bride. It's still beautiful, and could I use this vulgar term, sexy?
I was just thinking that Lament was missing from this. Although
Yes.
for people who, for the audience and performers who know the
Yes.
story of Hector and Andromache, I guess it is never missing.
Neville, Lament is always around the corner in ancient Greek song culture, and my colleague Margaret Alexiou would love to tell anecdotes about when she's recording or studying laments, how easily they modulate into love songs and back, and how they can cross genders. It's so powerful. Lament is everything. I almost want to say. And you remember, dear Keith, we would say to college students, maybe because I was so eager to have them like Achilles, and most college students hate Achilles. And I'd say, well, but Achilles can lament like the best of lamenters himself. That must show that people really like him. I mean, the ancient Greek song culture, you moderns may not like him, but they loved him.
I think the word you used was heartthrob.
Yes, he's a heartthrob. He's definitely a heartthrob, and so is Hector, who in many ways is the Achilles that never happened, because Hector gets married and has children. And Andromache, what a diva. You know, in the context of another course that I'm working on, and you all know that I'm very obsessed with it at the moment, it's interesting, isn't it, that in opera, people who die tragically tend to be the sopranos, not the tenors. And have you ever heard anybody describe a dying tenor as a divo? No, the idea of the goddess of opera is always female, even though, as we know, there's so much patriarchal artistic control even. But certainly the medium softens the patriarchy and the potential sexism, I think.
Well, let's talk for just a few minutes about the hour 6 question before we go here.
Yes, because I'll never stop talking about Sappho 44, ever.
Yes, there was a question from one of the participants, and wondering if the epic demands for Achilles to send Patroclus. Is it the epic or is it his choice?
Yeah, the overall question is, Achilles is clearly worried about sending off Patroclus to fight as his substitute, so why does he do it?
Well, can I go back to the old man? By old man, I mean Aristotle's Poetics, who says who says it best, maybe, when he says, you can't separate plot from character. You can't separate character from plot. And if you have to say which of the two supersedes the other, he would even be ready to say that plot is in the driver's seat. Even when it comes to character formation, although you certainly want your characters to be consistent. So I think that kind of question is a good question, but I would like to answer it in a way that that is bipartite. It has two sides to the same coin. Yeah, it's a plot requirement, but in a sense, it suits the character so well. Can I say it that way? And I love the fact, in the book version, I don't really play it up, but maybe one thing I could say now is that wonderful anecdote about a field worker who's working in Chhattisgarh region of India. And this person is gathering, quote unquote, epic traditions and has been working on it for a whole year or something. And then it's time to pack up the bags. The monsoon season is coming. And then a little old woman comes up to this field worker, this ethnomusicologist, and says, well, I can sing this in a different way. And up to now, the default terminology was, oh, this is epic, right? Epic. And it's about star-crossed lovers. And will they ever be reunited, et cetera, et cetera. So the ethnomusicologist gives it a try, does a recording. Turns out this old woman sings in a different meter from the quote unquote epic meter that the ethnomusicologist has so far collected. A different accordatura, shall we say, different melodic contour, different formulas, and get this, different storylines. Let's call them the way Albert Lord used to call them, themes. For early Lord, at least, theme is the how shall I say it, the atom, the building block of content. So all of these things are different, yet they're related. So to use the technical linguistic expression, we see cognate And I've deliberately suppressed the gender of the ethnomusicologist because she was a woman too. And so I would like to theorize that she wouldn't have been tapped on the shoulder by this shy little old lady who says, well, I can sing it differently, if it hadn't been a woman who was collecting what had up to then been only male performances by males. And so suddenly, for this person, her name is Joyce Fluckiger, a whole new world opened up where there's a men's world of song culture and a women's world. And of course, the two interweave all the time and influence each other. But how would you ever have noticed that if the more public and therefore the male side of the thing hadn't been suddenly challenged, where the boundaries were crossed, the sort of superficial boundaries that keep men and women apart. I just love that, and then I love this particular anecdote so much. I asked Joyce, who's become a friend, to write a book about it, and I love the title of the book that she published in the series for which I'm general editor, called Myth and Poetics. And the title of Joyce's book, Joyce Fluckiger's book, is, get this, Gender and Genre. Now, is that a good title or what? And then I love the way the subtitle involves not Chhattisgarh, but because people would run the other way because they feel so ignorant, but Middle India. Gender and genre in Middle India. It sounds like, I don't know, we're talking about hobbits rather than humans, but it is humans. Just love it.
Well, on that note, we're about out of time for today. We have a couple of things.
Well, I'm sorry I talked so much, but you know, we're in Lament land, and that means you can't shut me up. And especially with Sappho 44, and my God, can you imagine that my first publication on that kind of thing? Ooh, it wasn't even 74. I did an earlier thing on Sappho in 73. So Sappho is very big for me, and I really do think that we understand the Homeric Iliad much better if we understand, with all the difficulties that the textual tradition presents, if we don't understand Sappho.
Wonderful. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you all. I'm sorry to do so much talking, and you didn't do enough talking, but we'll make up for it the next time, okay?
Great. Can't wait till next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.